We do have a quorum present. And let's see, we do have a consent agenda item, which is just the consideration of the minutes that were previously emailed to you from our last meeting. I looked over those. I didn't see anything that needed any correction or changes. Did anyone else see anything that needed to be changed on the minutes that were sent to you?
No, sir.
All right, is there a motion to approve the minutes as written?
I move to approve.
Move to approve by Mr. Rodriguez. Is there a second? Not everybody at once. Shirley Spears. Second by Ms. Spears. All those in favor say aye. Aye. Any opposed? Motion carries. All right, moving on to public
Chairman?
comment. Yes?
Before you get started, we have not had a chance to update the entire board that the city council adopted a new process for public comment and
Okay.
comments on particular items on the agenda.
Okay.
So we're going to kind of do a hybrid today. The idea is citizens would sign up before the meeting to speak on a specific item, or if there's not an item on the agenda, they would talk in public comment. So that's
Okay.
why you'll see the public comment has been moved on our agenda to the top, just after the consent agenda, so
Okay.
that you can hear from citizens. And what we plan to do in the future is that we have these forms that they sign up for in the back. You would be able to acknowledge either Hannah or I, and we would tell you, first up is Mr. Smith to come and talk about something, and we
Okay.
would do that. As always, the board chair has the ability, if you want to continue that dialogue with the applicant or proponent or opponent, you have that ability. But we're going to work with you guys. Today will be kind of a hybrid, and we'll make
Do
sure.
we have
that-
anybody signed up?
We do have somebody
Okay.
signed up for public comment. And it looks like there's a few more folks coming in.
Okay.
But just wanted to let everybody know, and we will talk a little bit more about that in my report, about how we'll try to make sure, because we want to, I know this board, as well as all of our boards, want to be open and transparent, and if somebody comes to speak, you want to hear what they have to say. So we recognize that, and so this is just a mechanism that the city council adopted for all boards, and we're learning ourselves on how to facilitate this for our community.
And just, can you just go ahead and summarize that? I recall, as I recall, they have to sign up before the meeting that they want to speak on an agenda item, and then also if they want to just give general public comment for that.
That is correct.
And there is a limitation to how long they can speak.
Yes, they get to speak up to 3 minutes. Of course, the board chair can allow them to finish their statement or their thought. That is very subjective.
Okay.
We try to stay fairly consistent, but obviously if there's something that the board is wanting to continue to hear about, there can be an extended time.
All right, well, I think we can go ahead. If there's anyone signed up for a public comment that's on an item not on the agenda, then we can go ahead and hear those now.
Okay, Evelyn Smith, you can be the first one to go.
Good afternoon.
Good afternoon, Evelyn.
Evelyn Smith, SMD 5. My first question is, I see all your names up there. Have you replaced the city council? Just a joke. That would be nice to be in one spot, one place for everything. So anyway, I just come to get an update. I think you guys haven't been meeting for a while. At least I've been missing them, hadn't been here for a while. If there was any update on the nonprofit organizations in regards to the cap that should be or is discussed to be on nonprofit organizations.
Well, we can't go into it in great detail because it's not on the agenda. We have had those discussions in this board about coming back and revisiting those. We haven't taken any action on it yet, and I think we're still waiting for staff to come up with some information for us to come back. And we haven't had a couple of meetings for the last couple of months, so that's been the delay on that.
Right. So, but it's still on the
It's still
discussion, in
yeah.
other words.
It is still open for discussion, yes.
Okay, thank you.
Okay. Any other public comments?
That's everyone.
Okay. All right, we will move on then to the regular agenda. The next item on the agenda is the financial report.
Thank you, Chairman. Aaron Benoit, Director of Planning and Development Services. Get through here to this first slide represents the South. As you can see on this slide, they have not given the allocation for this fiscal year that we're currently in October, that started October 1. They are finalizing that number right now. I have some preliminary numbers that I'll talk about in just a moment. And so you can see here in the South, that was through the end of last fiscal year, that you can see down here at the bottom, the available for assignment. When we ended back in July, we had 246,000. They've gone back and looked at some things, and some of those projects that did not happen, they went back and reallocated that money into the South. For those that didn't do the project, and the money's got reabsorbed back in, ready for allocation. So it bumped it up to 316,953. That will carry over into this October. And so you'll see we're starting with a very solid balance for this first year. So looking at a projection, this is a projected number that they're looking at the property tax staying just slightly over that 1.2. Instead of 1.202, they're looking at 1.243. So about 41,000 more, and the interest income changing from that 3,800 and the interest income going up to 19,784. But those are potential numbers. Those are not 100% full numbers yet for this fiscal year, but we will be getting those for our next meeting in November. What that means, based on our expenditures, that available for assignment in the South potentially is $1.5 million, which is a big, big number, which I'm very happy about. But I also think that it means that we need to find some projects that we can incentivize some of those private projects and get them moving in the South TIRZ district. And so we hope in November we will come back with a very firm number, ask for an application opening timeframe, make sure those applicants come in, and then hopefully right after the first of the year, we have a meeting that we can bring them forward to present them to you, and then start them with the city council in February and start hopefully doing some big projects coming up.
Okay.
Do we have any that you know of right now, applications that's turned in for January?
We have not seen anything for the South, although I may turn and look at Monica Ramos just to see if she's been talking with anyone with downtown San Angelo, and I'm sure she has, but
We have, and they're holding off on submitting applications around COVID, but they're preparing, so I would say that's about 4 or 5.
yeah. So as she said, that she thinks she's talked with 4 or 5 that they're preparing, which is a great partnership with downtown San Angelo. We want to make sure we can get them to the DHRC or the Design and Historic Review Commission if they need to for the types of items that they're needing to, which if we can go ahead and start engaging with those communications now, we can get them maybe November, maybe December, make sure that they get that off their checklist so that they can move forward. So we're very excited about that.
Aaron, I have a question on this particular
Yes,
sheet,
sir.
though, and I'm a liberal arts humanities guy, so, numbers are my weakness, but at the last time I checked, total revenues of 1.2 and a total expenditures of 1.6 doesn't look very good. Can you explain that for me? I mean, what am I missing?
It's 733 up the top, added back down, they did it.
Oh, okay.
Yes, that beginning balance there that they had.
Yeah, you need to put that 723 in your total revenue column, so you have a positive. You've got really $1.9 million, really.
Okay. Yeah, there you go.
That's correct.
All right.
You need to reverse that, and put that 723 in.
See, I knew if I had somebody smart like Stephen Brown next to me. it'd
That's
be all
right.
I was missing something.
But yes, we get this from our finance department. This is how they want us to present the numbers, and so that's what we have in our current is 316,000. Again, that's going to roll over and potentially become 1.5 coming up here in the next month. So we do plan to present that in November so that we can get a cycle moving forward with applications and try to get folks through the right processes to get in front of you guys.
Okay. Any other questions on the South, on the board? Okay. go on to the north.
All right, the north, of course, started out this last year at 3 million, with the property taxes of 1.1 and an interest income of 60. That brought the total up there over just 4,100,000 and almost 4.2 million, excuse me. Then you start doing the expenditures, and you have 2.1, almost 2.2 that comes out, and that left us with the 2 million. We do have 2 applications today that will ask for out of that funding right there. Let me switch over to the north. So looking at what they're projecting right now, let me clear those 2 off. This number potentially could be 1.294, so almost 1.3. And the number right below is almost doubled from 60,000 to 117,000 in interest income, which then would put this bottom number being roughly $3.4 million, depending on what you decide today, available for assignment. As you guys know, this past year, you did make a commitment, which City Council did approve, for some more streetscape, which ended up being roughly 3.4 million. That will start after this cycle, and that will start being a monthly allocation in 2026 that you'll start seeing. But this money is dollars that are available for expenditure today.
So let me make sure I understand, Aaron. So you're saying the streetscape project that we approved, that's already considered in the 3.4?
It has not been considered in the 3.4.
Can you remind me again of that number?
Well, the total was 3.4 million for that entire process. That would be 7 plus a few months. That was the decision of the board to make that recommendation to City Council, which they did approve. And so that would start in 2026, that each, the north and the south, would be paying a dollar amount every month for those improvements. That is not reflected here in any of these numbers, because that number has not become a real number yet until that 2026. Yes, ma'am.
Okay, thank you.
Any other questions on the finances on the north zone? All right. I think that's good. I think we can move on. Unless you have anything else on that, the next item on the agenda is the update of distribution of TIRZ funds for city projects.
So we are still drilling down into what does that all mean. What we were able to come up with our finance department is that public projects in these 2 categories, it's a very big conglomerate of things. And so we're trying to get down to what types of the actual projects and have you a line item of those. We are not quite there yet. But for public projects, these are not private incentives that the South has spent from the beginning of the TIRZ program, is $1.9 million. The same on the North for public projects has been almost $1.2 million for a total of 3.1. Then we went back and we looked back again at all the private incentives that we have given during the beginning of the TIRZ time in this district, and that's been 4.8. And so again, that comes back to, you've always heard about that almost $8 million in incentives that we have given out, whether they're private or public, through the almost 20 years of the TIRZ program, and we have roughly 11 years to go. We've given out almost $8 million in investment. We are still drilling down into those numbers, and just like Evelyn came up and asked about what is our recommendation for nonprofits, we plan on having that for you for November. That will be a big topic of discussion of what those percentages look like, because we're really wanting to make sure we're giving you true and accurate numbers, that everything is that, okay, well, this is how we've decided out dollars through the history of TIRZ, whether it's been a public project for everyone or a private incentive for a private business.
Aaron, on the numbers for the north, does that include funds that were approved by this board and city council from the north to be used on the downtown improvements that would be in the south, such as the streetscape and all that? In other words, I just want to make sure where
does.
it doesn't necessarily reflect where it was spent on this.
Right, that does include those dollars, that particularly
Okay.
was the engineering design that was approved for those dollars to come out of that area, and that's why that number is not as big as I would thought it might have been, because the dollars for the north, actually building it in the north didn't happen. It only got built in the south, and that's why the south numbers are higher than that.
Okay. So the south number takes into account funds that were from the north that we chose to allocate for the engineering projects on those things in the south, correct? I just want to make sure I'm understanding.
So this number here is only dollars out of the south tiers.
Okay,
This number here are dollars that came out of the north tiers, but some of these dollars were used for the
Okay.
engineering designs overall. But this is where the south is where the construction actually took place.
these are the numbers coming out of the south and the north, not necessarily
Correct.
where they were spent.
Yes, sir.
Okay.
Yes, sir. But I'm very pleased that our community is continuing to do this investment. A couple of things that we want to do with these numbers. One is bring you forward some recommendations as it applies to maybe nonprofits and how you want to maybe set a policy that may go forward to city council. I also want to do some graphic modeling with you guys, showing you what this investment has done, maybe with as simple as property taxes, and looking at some of those concentrated areas that we've done, and what has that done with the property taxes over a period of time with investments. Particularly, maybe we take 5 projects and say, all right, these are private incentives. We invested $75,000 with them. What has happened to them over the last 10 years in property taxes? Has it increased? Has it lowered? Has it stabilized? What has it done? And so we hope to do some of that. That'll be after the first of the year, but we're going to bring forward some of that information for the nonprofits earlier than that, so you can make some decisions there. But I think that's going to help guide us in the last decade plus of where do we want to spend our dollars? How do we want to continue to reach out to our public and those private owners to utilize dollars from the TIRZ program to reinvest into these 2 areas? So,
Okay. Thank you.
all right,
Any
thank you.
questions? Let me just ask, any questions from anybody? No, I think we're good. Now it's item number 7, consideration and possible action of North Tiers projects.
Good afternoon, everyone. Hannah Morrell, Development Services. Today, I only have 2 projects for you guys. And then I have another tax request. So we're going to ignore this one for now. And we're just going to focus on the MLK and the West 26, okay?
Okay?
They're both asking for $75,000, and with the revenue and the funds that Aaron just presented to you guys, that would be the number left if we presented, or if we went through with both $75,000, so the $150,000. So we'd be left with 1.8 still. All right, starting with 2505 Martin Luther King. They are requesting $75,000, like I just said, and then the project cost is going to be about $82,000, and since they're in the north, they only have to provide a 10% match. So it'll be about that $8,200. A summary of work they're going to be doing is grading, doing their parking, fencing, updating their fence murals, and doing some signage. So you guys may recognize this one. It is the chicken farm. They were so kind to give me a little bit of an example of what happens when it rains. This is why they want to redo their parking and redo some of that grading for it. So there is no curb to direct the water. And so essentially grading it, and before they do that, it just kind of settles in one area. It kind of floods everything out. No one really wants that. And so you can see over here, it really just floods them out over there. So that would be part of it. I believe that, okay. Then we have the fencing. So they're going to do away with that pencil fencing you guys probably saw in this last one, right over there. And they're going to replace it with this metal fencing. They're going to update some murals and just kind of touch up some painting, really just make the signage pop a little bit more to get more attraction over there. Yep, that's about all for this project, this property.
Okay. And just to point out, the if there was any questions. The chicken farm, this is privately owned, and it's
Yes,
not a
not a non-
501,
it
it's
is
not a
not a
nonprofit
nonprofit.
organization.
Correct.
So,
Yes, sir.
okay.
Okay, then we have 323 West 26th, which is going to be the property located right beside the chicken farm. They're also asking for 75,000. Their project cost is going to be a little bit higher, so about 102, and their match is going to be 72 or 27,000. I'm sorry. They're going to do a repair of the facade. They're going to replace basically all of it, roof and gutters as well. So you'll see over here, chicken farm's about over here, and then that property is located right here, so it's the same as that. Here's what they're wanting to do for it. So they're going to keep the same body of it and basically just really redo the whole facade.
And what property is this now?
The
Do what?
Chicken Farm Arts Center.
Yes, ma'am.
Oh, this is still chicken?
It is. So
They
here's
own
the
both.
chicken farm here, and then we've got the property right there.
So to clarify, it's the same company with two different businesses and proposals?
Two different owners, I believe.
I'm sorry.
Am I
Could you
correct?
repeat that, Hannah?
Cassidy?
Is there someone here from?
I do have the applicant here today.
Yes, come on up.
She can clarify on that a little more.
Tell us what you have in mind.
Hi, everyone. Chastity Oaks with the Chicken Farm Arts Center. So these are actually owned, this property is owned by Heart and Soul Real Estate, which was one of our companies. And then Chicken Farm Ventures rents out the property for the Chicken Farm Arts Center and operates all of the chicken farm activities out of the Chicken Farm Arts Center. So two different businesses, same real estate owner entity, though.
Okay.
So a little bit about both projects and us. So we bought the Chicken Farm Arts Center with the intent to really insert ourselves into the community, really become community partners, and help bring the Chicken Farm Arts Center as a staple and iconic place in San Angelo into the next generation, so that it could be a vibrant place for the arts and for the local community and for people to just enjoy community activities at low or no costs. However, there are costs to upkeeping the facilities and the programs and all of those things. And we get a lot of feedback from guests, from the public that are both local as well as tourism visitors, because we have in there, we've got 6 hotel rooms that we do pay appropriate hotel and occupancy tax for. But a lot of those visitors look at our property and go, wow, this is really run down. It looks kind of like a hippie village, and it looks like it was really great, 20 years ago. And so it takes a lot of effort in order to invest into the property, because there's so many things that need to be updated in order for it to feel like a safe, secure, welcoming, and inviting and vibrant community that it can and will be. So that is part of our interest in trying to update the chicken farm. We would have come several years ago when we bought the property, but we really needed a game plan on how to invest in the property. So we didn't want to invest the city's money poorly or unwisely without consideration for those that have paid into the funds. So, for example, we knew we couldn't just redo the facade or the fence of the property or create some new fun entryways into the property without addressing the grading. Right now, when it rains, there's a high point. I don't know how this... Okay. Can you circle that right there?
Do you want me to go back, or do you want me
Oh,
to
no,
stay
this
on
is
here?
fine. This area right there. There's not a curb there, for example, and so when it rains, all the water floods into our property, this direction, and then piles out here. So a long time ago, out in front of where the new Chick-fil-A is, that area between there and Icon Cinema, that was a catch basin for water runoff for that whole area. When this road was installed, there was a curb on the end here that's missing for whatever reason, don't know. But so water comes into our property, and we don't have a way to channel it out right now. So we're just looking for some help in addressing that, and whether that's a partnership with, maybe ASU, Civil Engineering Department, or something like that too. We could be creative in ways that we can work with folks to get these things addressed and corrected. We also want to make sure that people who are visiting the property, tourists and visitors, people who are coming to stay on property, feel safe and secure while they're there. And let's see, in terms of this other building, the intent with this building is that it will one day lead into being part of the chicken farm property. There's still debate on whether it could be a venue space or a space for additional artists like metal sculpture or welding, or other types of classes that could be taught there. But we would want to make this more inviting and have a parking lot here that serves the chicken farm as well as this property, and then we could eventually cut through the fence that divides them and combine the properties. However, right now, just updating the facade, getting this property to feel more alive and run down. We've had a couple instances where people have broken in and tried to live there. So we just want to make it feel more safe, and we really want to invest in the north side of San Angelo overall. Any questions?
Any questions? Ms. Oaks? Shirley?
You are on the tax rolls.
Yes.
Yeah,
Okay.
Shirley had a question.
So right now.
Hold
we
on,
have a-
hold on.
Oh, sorry.
Let Shirley go
I'm sorry.
first.
Thank you. I'm still a little bit confused. So this, what you're trying to do on 26, it's not going to have a direct impact right now on the chicken farm itself? Am I understanding?
It will, in terms that it's adjacent and it's right next to the property, and that it will, because it will be more visually appealing, people will have that feeling of being more safe and secure when they're visiting the chicken farm as well. The idea is if we can get this all cleaned up, looking better, then we can make it part of the chicken farm property immediately.
Okay, so today, when it floods at the chicken farm there off of Martin Luther King Drive, right, it doesn't impact this property in the back?
No.
Okay, so tell me one more time, slow for me, because I evidently don't understand.
No problem.
Your plans for the 26th Street property, tell me again how that's,
This-
I'll say in the short term, going to impact the chicken farm.
Sure.
I'm missing that.
No problem. So this is meant to be a facade update. Right now, we're having difficulty leasing it out to anyone. Nobody wants to rent it because of the condition that it's in, and so we're just having to personally pay for the mortgage on it. And so if we can update the property to have it to be income, or at least being able to pay its own bills, it would be nice that that helps the chicken farm in itself, right? The second part about it is, can I flip? Yes, oops. So by cleaning up the facade and so basically all the tin that you see on the building has holes in it, it's rotting out, it's just not safe, it's not secure, it's falling apart, and so it needs to be replaced in order for somebody to rent it or to for us to even host activities in it. So even if we wanted to, say for example, host a market day in there where we rent it out to vendors and studios, it's not in a place where it's really secure for people to leave their stuff in there because of the holes in the sides of the paneling and stuff.
Okay, so the intent is to make it look like this with all of the upgrades and then for it to be a revenue stream
Yes.
that goes back to the chicken farm.
It goes to the real estate company, but it's kind of a little bit of both. So if the chicken farm leases it out and they're the ones doing the operations out of it, then yes, that goes directly to the chicken farm.
Okay.
The chicken farm still has to lease it from the real estate company.
Hold on, look.
Yeah, no,
You
that
have a
was
question?
kind of my question, just the intent for the building once it's improved. So thank you for answering that.
Go ahead.
So as of right now, it's not being used for business purposes at all, it's just kind of sitting vacant?
Correct. So it is for lease right now. We had once we bought it, there was a contractor, HVAC company out of Abilene who leased it for a year and a half, and they were doing work at Shannon Hospital. So they worked out of there, and since they've left at the end of their lease, it's been on the market for lease, and we've not had anybody want to secure a contract.
How long has it been for lease?
8 months.
Okay.
And what percentage, once it's all beautiful like you've shown here on your rendering, what percentage of the revenues would directly affect the chicken farm?
I'd have to do some research. It depends on what events get held. It's a direct reflection of how many events we can get, if we can get some additional traveling, trade shows, or because this is really just an update for the outside of the building. We would have to do a whole nother reinvestment. As we can have those small events and save money, then we would save that money and then try to update the inside.
Oh, okay. I think what's troubling me is trying to show that they're in partnership, but to keep it separate. That's the difficulty that I'm having with tying them together. So
Right.
that's why I'm
So-
asking so many
But
questions.
I don't think you would. I think you can see it as two different projects. It's beautification of this project for one LOC and then one for the chicken art farm on the other.
Well, and I guess
Correct.
that's my question too. So just to understand, so the umbrella is the real estate company owns both properties.
Yes.
The chicken farm business organization rents the chicken farm area from you guys.
Correct.
No one is renting this other
Correct.
portion from you guys yet. But you're
Correct.
hoping that if you can make it pretty, chicken farm will. There's no guarantees there.
Correct.
If they could even use it or will use it, or maybe they will. And then the other option is to rent it to somebody else long-term, potentially.
Yes.
Okay.
Yes. Yes. Thank you for that
absolutely it is.
clarification. Yes.
Any other questions?
Is that two buildings?
It's actually 3 on this front side from here to here. This is a building, this is a building, and this is a building. So there's 3 there, and then there's a small shed back here. This small shed would not be included right now in the cost. It's just these 3 forward buildings. We're using the other one as storage.
So that potentially could be 3 venues?
Yes, so we've had people give us some ideas for if it becomes a venue space, it would be kind of 2 venue spaces with a middle area that would be restrooms and changing rooms, but one could be a chapel side, one could be a reception side. They could function as both. There's also talk about you guys could add a commercial kitchen, and this could be but obviously those are all significant investments on the interior space, which we're not addressing at this point.
And what is the parking situation for these 2 buildings?
It looked like there was a pretty good space around it. Does this project include paving of that?
I'm sorry?
Does your project include paving of the parking lot, or is it going to stay?
It would stay at the moment.
Okay.
It would probably get regraded. It's got a lot of metal in it because even before us, it was owned by Western Towers, and they had a lot of, it was a manufacturing site. So there's a lot of metal in the ground. So it would be at least trying to get a big metal roller, magnetic roller, to pick up all the metal that's in there.
So what we're looking at here where the fence is, that's 26th Street.
Yes.
Okay.
Yes, this
and
is
then-
26th Street, and this is 26th Street here.
Okay,
So this yellow outline is the property line for this building. And this section over here is all parking.
Okay.
And there is a fence right here that is where we would look to eventually connect the properties. Right now, we don't actually have any parking for the chicken farm directly, except for up here. The parking that's used across the street, we have a mutual agreement with the owner across the street to be able to use their parking lot. But, we know that could someday, be taken from us. So we need another spot to be able to park folks
And so the fence is
safely.
in the back of the chicken farm there. What you're planning to do eventually is to have it so that you can get between both buildings?
Correct. So if it became a venue, for example, and you had a wedding on the property, you had people who stayed in the guest rooms on the chicken farm property, they could be able to walk between the wedding and their hotel room.
Okay.
And there's
Thank you.
also the restaurant.
Correct. Yes,
Is
there's a
there
restaurant there as well.
Silo
Well, I've
House.
enjoyed both over the years, so.
So just to clarify, as of right now, there's no in-stone business plan for this building. It's just to
Correct.
try to make it pretty and see where we can go from there.
Yes.
Okay.
And that's mostly due to what funding we receive and the direction that it can go from there. So I'm once it's updated, it'll be an engagement of the public and seeing if we get additional bites for either long-term or short-term rentals, or if we have artists who then are really excited, or we can find some partnerships with the local universities to host classes there for different types of major art types like glass blowing, metal sculpture, welding, things like that.
So when are you planning, at this point, to really kind of get into having a business plan for some ideas, some concrete ideas that would then give you more information on how much you're needing to spend and that type of thing? When are you planning to do that?
So we're kind of running parallel tracks with both options right now, just trying to gauge traction and interest. And there's a lot of interest for it being a venue space, because right now in San Angelo, there's not really anything this size for a venue. And people are going to Austin, they're going to Dallas, they're going to Fort Worth or the Hill Country to try to find venues of substantial size. So it would be nice, I think, for the community in order to have something like that here locally, so that when someone does have a large event, they're bringing other people from those larger towns to our city to spend their money here. So that would be, if we can swing it financially, that would be our primary intent.
Any other questions?
Just a general question for Hannah or Aaron on this one. If we give them the $75,000 to do this with a 10% match and they do the outside facade, are they able to come back and ask for 75 more for like paving improvements with the same ownership under the same address, or what's, I'm just curious.
Good question.
That's a great question, and I think the answer is yes, they would be able to come back. I think it depends on if there's a competitive nature for funds in the north for some reason, and then they may not rank as high, because if you look at our policies, they say if you're a repeat person, you may not rank as high. But again, I think there are some opportunities, even when they're talking about venue. There's always that potential of the development cost of sprinkler installation. How big is it? How many people? There's other things to consider here.
Yep.
But I think they're taking it in phases of what they can bite off at a time. And right now, getting the facade cleaned up on this particular side, as well as even the chicken farm art side, is helping them grow their business in some ways, and then seeing what the next stage is for them.
Yeah. I'm just curious. I just got thinking about that on this project.
I think it sounds like a good project, and one that's worthy of the chicken farm. And I mean, that place is well-known, and I always enjoy the time I spent there. But what?
No, I guess I'm just still confused.
I guess I am too, because the chicken
We
farm
keep bringing the chicken
is a
farm in this discussion.
part of that.
But my understanding is that they have not done a business plan, and that it potentially will be able to house some events from the chicken farm or other. But I'm still understanding, and I apologize, I guess I'm being slow and old today, that this is not a chicken farm project, the other building.
Correct.
Am
at
I
this
clear
time.
on that?
And that is because we understood that in order to apply, we needed to apply under two different businesses. We're not, because otherwise it would be asking for too much money under the same business. They are two separate entities. They are
That's what
two
I
separate
understood.
businesses at this time. And that's why we're applying with two separate businesses.
I
Okay.
understand that. I'm just saying the area around
Well, it
there
just
is
confused me again, so-
important. And so I think the two projects as a whole in that area of town that is the area of town we've been trying to get projects in. And I think it sounds like a good project overall, whether you want to call it two projects or one, or however you want to do it. But anyway, that's just my thought.
My concern is that without there being a business plan, we don't know what the revenue stream coming back into the tax base is going to be.
Well,
And so putting money into something that is not really a legitimate business yet is a struggle for me.
Right,
So-
and then the valid question that you just asked about potential in the future, then they could come back and ask for more, and I guess I'm concerned that they're, phase one, phase two, whatever you want to call it. But my whole point of this, for the record, is just to make sure that we're not seeing this as a project for the chicken farm. It is not a project for the chicken farm. And although they may be close in proximity, and yes, this is the area where we're trying to make sure there's some improvement, It is not the chicken farm, and that's what I'm trying to make sure I'm clear on before we take our vote.
Sure. So the intent right now is with the facade improvements, the only thing that we would likely be able to then ask for in terms of a business plan is the current business model that we're under, and that's leasing it to someone. So right now, it's listed for $2,600 a month. With the property improvements, we would like to increase that monthly rental to probably $3,200 a month.
Yeah, and I see this as just like any other, I know there was another one in the North Tier that was a, one owner had it, and it was right there kind of by Fernandez Restaurant, and it had 3 different addresses, and he had no plans for it other than improving the building for rental. I see this just the same. I mean, he got three, 75,000 3 times, one for each address. She's asking for one for each address under 2, and they didn't really, other than speculative and improving the facade to generate income and helping it. We approve that. I see this as just the same.
Well, and I don't think, correct me if I'm wrong, Aaron, there's nothing in our criteria that requires there to be a written business plan before funding. And
That is
we
correct.
haven't done that before.
There's not a requirement for a business plan or an active business. One of our incentive types is facade improvement.
Yep.
Now, hopefully that does lead to improved tax base through a business of some kind or something of that nature. And I do want to make sure, Shirley, there are 2 projects here. One of
Yep.
them is, like you said, on 26. The other is MLK. The one on MLK is to kind of benefit the chicken farm arts center. The other one is a separate entity, if you will, or separate business. And I think I just want to make sure.
I think I was clear until there
Okay.
was a mention again. We keep mentioning
ma'am.
chicken farm with this project, and that continues to confuse me because I do see them as 2 separate
Yes,
projects.
ma'am. Thank you. I just
Yes.
wanted to make sure if you had any other questions.
There was one other thing I didn't go into additional detail on for the chicken farm project. So that one also includes wayfinding. One of the biggest complaints that we get from customers, from people out of town, and even actually people local who've not been to the chicken farm before, can't figure out how to navigate the property. So part of our motivation there is to create really clear wayfinding. So similar to if you were to go to a hospital and you park in the parking garage on this level and you come into the hospital on this level, it might be a green sticker in the parking garage in the same level of green when you get into the hospital, and everywhere you go that you're in that level, it's green. So we want to take that similar model and apply it to the chicken farm. So when you're in this section of the chicken farm, you're in the purple zone, or you're in the turquoise zone, or the orange, or whatever it might be, in order for people to establish, oh, here I am on the map, and here's where I want to go, and it's this other color, and I'm going to follow the way until I get there. So that's one of the other things that we really want to establish there is some better signage, so people aren't lost and confused, wandering around, going, am I in the right place?
All right. Any other questions?
What's the staff recommendation?
We recommended full funding for both projects.
Big pardon?
Full funding for both of the projects.
All right, thank you, ma'am.
Thank y'all.
Is there a motion?
Mr. Chairman, excuse me, do we want to make note on whether or not there was public comment signed up before we proceed?
Oh, okay, good point, good reminder. Do we have any public comment on this?
Yes, I believe we do. Let me just check with Hannah to make sure, but
Okay.
I believe we do. Jamal? Mr. Jamal Shumpert? He's good.
Okay,
So that's the only public comment we have at this time.
all right. The floor is open if anyone wants to make a motion on this issue.
We can do them separate or together.
However you want to do them. You want to do them separate? All right. Then let's consider them separately. We'll consider, we'll consider the 2505 MLK first. Does anyone want to make a motion regarding funding for the project for 2505 MLK?
Mr. Chairman, I move that we accept the $75,000 request at 2505 Martin Luther King Drive.
All right,
And
motion.
I second that.
Motion's been made and seconded. Is there any further discussion? And I'll just also, just out of an abundance of caution, make sure we don't have any other public comments. Since we're in our hybrid mode here, if there's somebody else that wanted to make public comment on it. All right, seeing none, we'll call the question. All those in favor say aye. Aye. All those opposed? And the motion carries. All right, now we'll take up the project on 26th Street, 323 West 26th Street. The floor is open for a motion.
I'll make a motion to approve $75,000 on 323 West 26th Street.
Motion's been made. Is there a second?
Second.
Second. All right. Is there any discussion of the motion? Anyone want to speak to the motion either way? All right, hearing none, we'll just go ahead and call the question. All those in favor of approving the application for 323 West 26th Street in the amount of $75,000, say aye. Aye. All those opposed?
No.
No.
And everybody, all the ayes, hold your hands up.
5-3.
5-3. Motion carries. And those projects are approved. Good luck, Chastity. At least, good luck with your next step. All right. Next, we have item 8, consideration and possible action of the South TIRZ project request for tax abatement for 109 South Chadburn.
This project did come before you guys, I believe, at our last meeting. They were going to do those lofts at the top. This is 109 South Chadburn. They're going to do the lofts, and they were going to do the little bit of facade work. When they turned in their application, they also did request a tax rebate. Let me correct you on that. That is a rebate, not an abatement. So,
Okay.
let's see. So the way this does break down, this will be, so per our policy, it is going to be over a 5-year course. And it is going to be 100%, 90%, 80%, 70 to 60. And it will only start upon project completion. So this is a very rough estimate of kind of what it will be with that 52, since in 2 years, the city tax rate could slightly change. It could stay the same. This is just kind of a rough estimate. So overall, for the 5 years, it'll be $52,105. And as noted, that will be paid out per year, per percentage. So, it's pretty to the point of it. But this is what they have.
Remind us what else we've seen on this particular property before.
So I
And
believe
do we have other projects approved on it already?
before my time, I believe there was something on the downstairs, something down here. Aaron, can you speak on that?
Correct. I believe the downstairs received of 75,000. Maybe it was not quite 75,000. This is in the south, but between 65 and 75,000 for a sprinkler system for the bottom. And I believe recently, and I say recently, that back in the earlier this year, they received a 75,000 for the facade changes that you see here on the right side of the screen and the bottom side of the screen. They have not completed those yet. They're still working on those projects. In our policies, this was a great learning opportunity for Hannah and myself looking through this. But under property tax, it says property tax incentives will be awarded in addition to the other listed incentives that are not counted towards the maximum award amounts. That was our first concern, is are we going over our maximum award amounts? Obviously, you'll have the discretion to say yay or nay, but they are eligible to request this tax rebate.
So how much have they been awarded total as of today?
150,
Do we know?
I would say roughly. I feel like it was 75, but I don't.
We haven't paid out that because the facade's not.
Correct.
It's not completed.
Correct.
We haven't paid out that's just been what's.
Correct.
Correct. I'm pretty sure this last year they did receive the full 75,000 because we
Okay.
had extra money in the south. I believe the year that they first asked for it was the year that there was a lot of competition in the south, and they may not have gotten the full 75,000. So I'm going to say it's between 140 and 150,000 for real physical features on the property.
Is there anyone for the applicant here?
There isn't a representative for the applicant here.
Yep.
Yes.
Can you come on up, ma'am? We were going to put a spotlight on you there for a second. But just tell us what's going on and what you hope to achieve.
Sure. My name is Vanessa Boyd. I work for Amy Zetzman. Zetzman Investments LLC owns 109 South Chadburn. She did receive a TIRZ grant, I believe in 2021, could have been 2022, for the sprinkler system. She did complete that sprinkler system upgrade and got a tenant in the first floor. The arcade bar was there for about a year. They just recently actually went out of business, and it's for lease again. In the meantime, Amy has pursued bringing the second floor into production, and that's what we spoke to you about earlier this year, and she received the $75,000 award. And that is based on actually a combination project between the first floor and second floor. It's the facade upgrade to bring it back into more of a historical look. It's already been through the DHRC, been approved. She's just finishing the mechanical, electrical, plumbing engineering plans with Carrie Houston, local engineer. We've submitted for permit with the city for the facade and the stairwell work. We're wrapping up the second floor design phase, hopefully by end of this year. And our goal is to go into construction in the spring of next year.
Okay. Any questions for the applicant?
I got one. How many employees you got?
Amy does not have any employees for Zetzman Investments LLC. The goal is to lease out the first floor.
Total employees.
So Zetzman Investments LLC does not have employees. The goal is to rent it out to another business for the first floor. And then the second floor is actually intended to be residential lofts. So it will be, residential tenants.
Right.
Any other questions?
Have we ever given rebates for the tiers in?
We did some research on that. It looks like there's been some, early on, there was a couple of tax rebates, but nothing in recent history. It is a function of the TIRZ policy that it's there, and so they have the ability to request it. I think we are recommending to approve the request, as this helps them reinvest back those dollars potentially back into that building. They're not required by any means, but it helps them have some potential cash on hand to reinvest back into the building.
And I can add that ultimately the project, her match is going to be much greater than the TIRZ project requires. So the current project estimate total is $2.2 million.
Okay. Any other questions? Thank you, ma'am.
Thank you.
All right, since we're still in our hybrid, Catherine, any public comment at all on this topic? All right, hearing none. The floor is open if anyone wants to make a motion.
Just verify one more thing, sorry. This will not start until the facade and the stairwell in that 75 has been awarded and finished and given that money.
Correct.
But we don't hold anything for the lofts or anything above there. We don't have any control over that. So this will just start when our 75 is given to them.
Correct. This is just for the project that was approved a couple months ago. It should take them hopefully 2 years, so within the 2 years when they complete it, it has to be a total complete project. So yeah.
Right.
Now, one more question thinking about here. If the value goes up, say in 2 years, the value of the building is 1.9 million at the same city tax rate, is it still on the percentages or are we doing it on the dollar amount?
It is on the city tax rate percentages.
Okay. So it could be higher than 52,000.
Yeah, this is just an estimate.
Yeah, this is just a rough estimate.
The floor is open if anyone wants to make a motion. Well, I'll make a motion to approve. Any second?
Can I ask another question first?
You can ask as many
Sorry.
questions as
I'm
you
just
want.
trying to get the
Sure.
process is. Where does this money come out of?
It comes out of the south allocation.
But each year, so
But
like.
each year, it would not, yeah, they would go ahead and take the 52,000.
Oh,
If
okay.
I'm making sure, yeah. They would go ahead and take that aside. If there's any other increment, you would see that come out each year. If there was, say, instead of, say, year 3 where it says 10,421, if that was bumped up to 12,000 based on values, then they would take out the remaining
The difference.
1,500, yeah, the difference there.
So then how can this come up now? Should we not have to wait till January for this?
Well, they're able to ask for it at any time. How our finance department, when they get the property completed and this takes effect, it will start taking effect the next month after that.
Okay.
So it
Yep.
just depends on what month of the year they actually finish.
Okay.
So the motion's on the floor is made to approve. If there's a second, we can go on and we can discuss and ask any more
Gotcha.
questions
Okay.
that we want. If there's not a second, then the motion dies for lack of a second. Is there a second?
Mr. Chairman, I make a motion, we do not approve this project.
Well, the motion's on the floor that I made is to approve.
Did you get a second?
That's what I'm about to declare. If no one wants to make a second, then I didn't know what you were going to say. So apparently that motion dies for lack of a second,
No,
so.
I'll second.
Oh, you second?
Yeah.
All right. My motion's been seconded. It's open for discussion or further questions if anybody wants any clarification.
I'm curious, just sitting here and trying to process it. So, I mean, it is a tax rebate, but we're essentially, if I'm understanding this correctly, so I'm going to make this statement and put a question mark on the end of it, that money is going to come out of our grant, our pockets, or the TIRZ pockets, and is essentially going to pay these taxes for this business?
Only the city portion and only, the first year is 100% of the city portion of property taxes, and then it starts tearing down.
Yeah.
Right,
But
they
so
still
it's-
pay the other
Yeah,
entities.
and I guess the other question I'd have is they came back after it was approved and made this additional request?
It was at the same time.
Okay.
It was at the same time. We just weren't prepared internally to bring it forward to you guys at the same time, as was the first time we had experienced one of those, and we wanted to make sure we bring it forward properly instead of having a procedural error that really causes problems.
Yeah, we appreciate that.
Any other
I mean,
questions?
this is not unlike anything else that our economic development might do. It's really to stimulate keeping businesses in this downtown, in this South Tiers district. It's how do we continue to do some incentivizing, and whether it's sales taxes we get back, maybe it's higher property taxes because the property values go up. There's lots of mechanisms in trying to continue to revitalize, particularly this one just happens to be in our downtown.
Ms. Spears?
So am I understanding that when we approve this for the amount of funds that they're asking for today, that automatically then puts them into this abatement, this rebate process?
Yes, ma'am, that's correct.
Okay, thank you.
And they have to complete the project. Okay, there we go. I'll let Brian do his thing back there. And they have to complete the projects to receive the rebates.
They do have to complete that project to receive the rebate. And you also know that in our TIRZ policies, they're not able to sell the business, the building, that type of thing. They might sell a business out of it, or a business might come and go if they're leasing the space, but they can't sell the property. So they are tied to the property. It goes with them
For how long?
for the 5 years, for the rebate period.
I've looked at several projects downtown especially for second-story lofts, and I've seen other downtowns. I've been with downtown San Angelo and went to other cities and seen what living downtown does to a downtown, and it's amazing. And as I've looked at these projects with either myself or property owners, there's no comps out there that we have down here. And I know, like I said, that there's, I agree with, if even surprised that 2.2 million will get this done. I know 52,000 is not much of that 2.2 million, but every dollar helps. And if we can get this to spur on something to have comps for other, because there's a ton of buildings downtown that can have this, I think this, I mean, I'm all for it.
So I have two questions. So if this does go through, it puts them at, give or take, about $200,000 that they have received from TIRZ. And then the second question is, are they able to go through the city council and file for an abatement as well? Or the county, state, whatever, they still able to file for abatements as well as this?
That's a great question. I'm not sure I know the answer to that second question. I can certainly find out, and I'm not sure if Kathleen, if she has any knowledge about that. My assumption is no, because this is the city property tax. Now, is there a way to do something with the county or the school district? Maybe there is, and they may be eligible for those things. I'm just not aware. Kathleen, would you have any ideas?
At this time, I do not know.
Yeah, I do know. If they go to the county, they'd have to comply with certain requirements regarding employments and numbers and all that
Yeah.
stuff. And they may or may not be eligible. So I just don't, but they could go to the county based on employment.
Okay.
figures.
Thank you, Mr. Brown.
Still-
So I think there's
Go to
the
the
there's the
city as well.
potential.
Yeah.
This is just within our TIRZ wheelhouse, if you will, that it's available, because those TIRZ dollars are already really, they're not, while they're reinvestment dollars for us to reinvest into that area, this rebate to me is still a reinvestment policy that we have to reinvest in those people that are doing it to help them continue to move forward with some aspects of different projects.
So just to clarify and kind of simplify, we don't know if they're eligible to apply for an abatement. We don't have that answer, and we're not sure about the county and/or school district type stuff either. Is that correct?
I think that is correct, yes. I think Mr. Brown alludes to that they could ask the county, and they would have to comply with certain things, but I'm not aware of how that actually works. Thank you.
Any other questions or discussion? Everybody ready for the vote? All right, all those in favor of the motion to approve the request for the rebate as presented, say aye. Aye. Any opposed?
No.
No.
All right, let's hold your hands up for those in favor. And it looks like 5-3, the motion carries. All right, next item on the agenda is Director's Report. Anything? I'm trying. 3:30.
So Chairman, for my report today, just saying, thank you guys for giving us the opportunity to learn kind of this almost first year, trying to make sure things are still moving forward. I think our goal is to bring more information to you guys so y'all can make really good decisions. I do also want to do some of that, what I call 3D modeling, showing based on properties how much their value may have gone up due to a TIRZ project or other factors, or maybe they're beside a TIRZ project and they didn't do anything, but their property value went up. Trying to illustrate the purpose of us doing our TIRZ project, and then maybe looking at some of those maps and saying, well, there's, for some reason, there might be a hole there for whatever the reasons are. Maybe is that a campaign that we work with those property owners to help try to get them to come forward. The other thing that's been mentioned to me is obviously we've all are aware of how inflation has impacted us. I know we've taken some time to get to the 75,000 threshold. Is that a consideration in the future based on some data points Do we increase that or not? As any of you guys know that have dealt with businesses, that 75,000 does not go near as far as you want it to go. While that is a very large amount, it still does not make a huge dent in projects when you're trying to do facades, when you're trying to make a new business happen in an older space, which is what happens in much of our TIRZ district. Because you have asbestos abatement, you may have sprinkler conditions, and so are we still staying viable with that amount of money of being $100,000? So I'll be asking some of those questions over the next 6 to 8 months, just trying to get some feedback of how we want to look at our next 10 years and how we want to continue to keep reinvesting in the north and the south tiers. So that's all I have today for you, Chairman.
One thing I just wanted to discuss and bring up, and then we can talk about possible future agenda items. I believe my term on the board is up, and I think I'm term limited. So, and I indicated to Hannah, and I'll say it to Aaron and the rest of the board, I'm happy to stay on as president of the board or to run the meetings until such time as the mayor or the council appoints a new head of the board, and for me to step down. I think I'm allowed to do that under the bylaws of the organization. I think there may be one or two others of our members who may be ending their terms but not be term limited out. And I don't know, Hannah, can you give us the update on that so we can just know how we proceed going forward?
Yeah, sure thing. So Greg Gaylor is also termed out,
Okay.
same as you. So I have asked him if he would continue to maybe serve just until the time being. And then I believe Ms. Spears, you were appointed on someone else's appointment. So technically, your next appointment would be starting your first term.
Full term.
So your first full term. So that's something that I'll bring to our city clerk as well. And then I believe I have Mr. Newland as well. And we agreed, or you agreed that you would like to continue another term? Okay, I will get with city clerk as well with that, and we'll have to put it on the city council agenda.
And if there is a board member who is interested in taking the August spot of presiding officer, let Aaron or Hannah know, or your council member know, and I'll be happy to give my 2 cents worth for whatever it's worth.
Yes, this board is one of the more unique ones that the city council has to appoint the board chair as opposed to it being voted on by you guys. But that usually happens with us just sending that name in to the city council. They do it at a council meeting. But usually it's generally kind of discussed of, all right, well, yeah, John Mark's willing to continue, or somebody else, since with John Mark being term limited, all right, well, who else is ready to step into that role to help run the meetings, basically. So I know Hannah's going to work with our city clerk. We'll talk with the city council member that may appointed you. I know like Mr. Brown and I think Mr. Benson may be appointees from the county. We will check with them to see if there's any process that needs to be reappointed for some reason. I'm not sure that that's the case, but we're learning that process to make sure that we have everybody appointed appropriately and things like that, so that we have everybody sitting here, and when our vote happens, it's a real vote. It doesn't get negated by some reason out there. So.
All right, and the only other thing, I just want to make sure, you alluded to this, at the November 26th, at our next meeting, are we going to be having the discussion on nonprofits, or will we have enough information then? I just don't want to make Ms. Evelyn come back if we're not going to be able to have any productive discussion on that at the November meeting.
Yes, and thank you for bringing that up. I'm wondering if we need to move that meeting. That, I believe the 26th is the week of Thanksgiving.
Yes, it is.
Do we need to move that to the,
December.
The one in December will be Christmas.
We can move it to December.
let's see.
26th.
Looking for my calendar on here.
Right around Christmas.
Well, we could do it earlier in December. I'm not going to be here on the December 26th, no.
Depends on if I'm in a different line or not.
It'd be the 23rd, I believe.
Well, I'll take your proxy.
So would there be a desire to do it on December 3rd or December 10th, and that be a combined meeting for November, December? Is that too late for us to make a decision on opening up a funding cycle for the South? Or do we have a meeting a week earlier in November, and then we have a meeting in December?
Whatever you want to.
Yeah, it doesn't matter to me.
I would just do them in like the first week in December.
Okay. We will look for the first week of December. We'll find a meeting place. We'll get everybody's on the calendar, and we'll start moving from there. That's a great point. Thank you for bringing that up, John Mark.
Are there any, just ask the board, are there any other agenda items you would like added to the agenda for the next meeting?
Well, to your point, Aaron, that in your director's report, other towns our size, Abilene, Midland, Odessa, with the tiers, what is their limit? I mean, like ours is 75. Can you do any research to tell us kind of where they're at? Okay, thank you.
And for clarity, Aaron, are we saying that we will have some comments about nonprofits at this December 3rd meeting? You'll have some updates for us?
Yes, ma'am. I'll have some updates, and I'll have a recommendation to the board of what city staff thinks would be appropriate. Y'all can have the discussion of what needs to move forward as a policy statement to city council for a city council vote.
Okay, which means then that the next step would be to get it before council.
Yes, ma'am.
Which still could be January, February, or March.
I would say we would try to move that very quickly into the January timeframe if we, so that they can make that decision as we're starting to make awards coming up in the first part of the year. So I think that's prudent for us to move that forward quickly.
Okay, thank you.
Anything else for the next meeting? All right. Is there a motion to adjourn?
Make a motion to adjourn.
Is there a second?
Second.
All those in favor say aye. Aye. Those are opposed? You can stay here.
No position on that one.